My name was Amir. I was a respected Muslim judge in London, my demeanor steeped in tradition and duty. I wore my faith as a badge of honor, navigating the fine lines of justice and cultural expectations. But inside, the proud facade concealed a storm, one of disillusionment and questioning. I stood at the crossroads of a deep-rooted belief and an unsettling emptiness, feeling the weight of unseen chains. It was during a routine day in the courtroom that my world shattered. As I read the verdict, the air grew thick, and suddenly I collapsed. In that instant, I was thrust into a realm devoid of light, a spiritual tribunal illuminated only by the presence of a figure emerging from the shadows. And there, amidst the darkness, I encountered Jesus. Not as a subject of debate, but as a radiant truth that pierced through the fabric of my existence. What unfolded next shook the very foundations of everything I thought I knew. Jesus began to unveil the veils that had obscured my vision, a revelation of a spiritual battle raging beyond the earthly realm, where systems of control manipulate hearts and minds. My eyes were opened to the deception that cloaked my faith, revealing how religious structures can imprison the soul, stifling the very essence of freedom we all seek. Returning to my life was a tormenting paradox. My heart swelled with a newfound desire to understand this truth, yet fear gnawed at me. I became a pariah in the eyes of my community, condemned as a traitor. Guilt consumed my thoughts, as if a darkness loomed over me, threatening to swallow my identity whole. But a flicker of hope burned within, a call to seek, to explore the radical love I had encountered. Despite the risks, I began to immerse myself in the words of those who had tread this path before me, Christians who had emerged from shadows of oppression, just like I was facing. The deep yearning to embrace this truth grew within me, intertwined with the gnawing fear of losing everything I had ever known. In those secret moments, truth and love intertwined, igniting a passionate rebellion against the chains that bound me. Each breath became a testament to the awakening I now realized wasn't just for me, but for many. It stirred within me a profound duty to share my story. A story of a judge who ventured beyond the confines of societal expectations and discovered a truth that liberates. Because in every shattered belief lies the promise of something beautiful waiting to emerge. As we journey together through this testimony, I invite you to reflect. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? These questions matter because we are all part of something larger, a collective awakening. And if you resonate with the truth that sets free, I urge you to subscribe to Truth from Beyond. This isn't merely about my story, it's about a revelation meant for you. So let's dive deeper into this life-altering journey. The courtroom in London was filled with a palpable tension that felt nearly suffocating. I am Amir, a judge who has dedicated my life to the practice of law, a vocation I approached with reverence and a sense of duty. As I prepared to announce the verdict on a case that symbolized the intersection of justice and faith, I couldn't shake the disquiet that settled in the pit of my stomach. The challenges faced by Muslims in British society were starkly illuminated within these walls. I was aware that every decision I made echoed beyond the case itself, influencing perceptions of religious freedom that hung in delicate balance. As I began to read the verdict, a wave washed over me, almost knocking the wind out of my lungs. The words became indiscernible for a moment, and I felt myself being pulled into a space beyond the courtroom. Suddenly, the world faded away, replaced by a blinding light. I found myself standing in an expansive void, feeling as though I had stepped into an alternate reality. In that profound stillness, Jesus appeared before me, radiant and filled with love that transcended any fear I had ever known. He called my name, and when I heard it, something inside me shifted, sparking a deep yearning for truth. In an instant, revelations began to unfold. Jesus opened my eyes to the hidden agendas permeating our institutions, how the elite, through manipulation and deception, wield power over the narratives that shape our beliefs. I witnessed the layers of fear that divide communities, cultures, and families, created by those who profit from disunity. It became painfully clear that the spiritual war one had felt tugging at my heart extended far beyond my individual experiences. It was a global struggle, one that impacted every facet of our lives. I understood that the truths I had been seeking were intertwined with the very fabric of humanity itself. The weight of these revelations was both liberating and terrifying. I began to grasp how the political climate was engineered to suppress dissenting voices and reinforce the status quo, a truth I had seen mirrored in the lives of those around me. Each individual case that came before me held a reflection of a larger conflict, illustrating the power dynamics at play and how blind adherence to tradition could sometimes lead us away from the light of genuine faith. I was overwhelmed with urgency, knowing that I could no longer remain silent within the professional role I had inhabited. The truth demanded action. When I returned to the courtroom, I found myself shaken but resolute. The verdict I had just read became more than just words. It represented a stepping stone to greater consciousness. I realized that by standing firm in my convictions, I could influence those around me. It would take courage to confront the deception swirling within my own community, and to initiate conversations that might lead to awakening. The challenges ahead would be significant, but as I looked into the eyes of my fellow judges and colleagues, I felt emboldened by the love and truth that Jesus had revealed to me. It was time to walk a new path, one that honored my spiritual awakening and challenged the very structures that had sought to confine me. I am Amir, a 45-year-old judge in a bustling court in London, and while I'm known to command respect in my traditional attire, there's a storm brewing within me that few can see. At first glance, my life appears stable. I've built a career that many would envy, dedicated to the principles of justice and fairness. Yet beneath this solemn exterior lies a profound emotional emptiness that often feels insurmountable. For years, I've felt trapped between the weight of my cultural traditions and a stirring in my soul that calls for something deeper, something I could not yet articulate. Every day, as I preside over cases that affect the lives of individuals, I notice a disconnection between my duties and my true self. The courtroom is filled with a sense of urgency, a microcosm of the larger society outside, plagued by deception and hidden agendas. I often reflect on the conditions of the world, how the elite utilize systems to maintain control, manipulating beliefs to serve their interests. Each verdict and ruling weighs heavily on my conscience, and I struggle with the realization that the spiritual war unfolding around us is one that I have been a part of, willingly or not. The turning point for me came unexpectedly. One evening, burdened by the pressures of my existence, I experienced a sudden collapse. I lost consciousness and was enveloped in darkness, a sensation that felt both terrifying and oddly liberating. In that void, a blinding light emerged, and there stood Jesus, radiant and compassionate. When he called my name, I felt a wave of warmth wash over me, dissolving the barriers that had held me captive for so long. In that profound moment, he began to reveal the truths that had previously eluded me, those hidden from plain sight due to the layers of societal conditioning. Jesus spoke to me about the deeper meaning of faith and the importance of awakening to the love that lies at its core. He opened my eyes to the ways in which religious structures can sometimes become prisons rather than sanctuaries. The revelation of how the spiritual war rages on in the hearts of individuals and communities struck me profoundly. I saw how fear and deception prevent us from experiencing genuine connection and unity. The division one observed in society, from political strifes to social inequalities, stemmed from the manipulation of truth by those in power, a reality that had haunted my conscience for years. When I returned to consciousness, the weight of my experience felt heavy yet liberating. I knew then that my call to share these revelations was not merely a choice. I had a responsibility to uncover the truth and guide others toward their awakening, but I was paralyzed by fear. How could I possibly confront the entrenched beliefs of my community? Would they accept my newfound understanding, or would I be ostracized just as I had feared? The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, yet there lay an ember of hope. I understood that to live authentically, I must embrace my spiritual journey and inspire others, even in the shadow of potential loss. The truth I had witnessed demanded to be shared, and it was time for me to reclaim my voice in this landscape of deception. As I sat silently in the confines of my modest home, I was enveloped by a growing sense of emptiness that gnawed at my soul. My name is Amir, a judge respected within my community in London, and yet in moments of prayer I felt an increasing disconnection from the very faith that had been my foundation. Each call to prayer that rang out around me served as a haunting reminder of my internal struggle, prompting me to question the role of religion in society, a force that seemed to provide comfort but also served as a mechanism of control wielded by those in power. The equilibrium I once cherished began to tilt precariously, and I could feel the storm brewing inside me. In the quiet hours of the night, disturbing dreams plagued my sleep, pulling me further into a spiral of doubt and confusion. I often woke in a cold sweat, heart racing as unsettling visions flashed before me. These dreams forced me to confront uncomfortable truths that I had long buried beneath layers of obligation and conformity. They hinted at the hidden agendas operating within our world, implying that the spiritual war we face is not just personal, but a collective struggle against the elite, who manipulate our beliefs to control and divide. Each encounter in my dreams felt like a call to awaken, an urging to peel back the layers of deception that had clouded my understanding. One night, in the midst of this turmoil, my internal conflict reached a breaking point. As I drifted into what felt like an overpowering darkness, I could feel my consciousness being pulled from my body. In that moment of surrender, I was enveloped by a radiant light. It was here that I encountered Jesus, standing before me with an aura of love that transcended every fear and doubt that had weighed on my heart. When he called my name, it resonated through my very being, igniting a spark of recognition that cut through the fog of confusion I had been living in. In that transformative moment, I realized the profound truth. There was more to faith than simply following tradition. Jesus revealed insights about the hidden agendas that shape our societal landscape, exposing the ways in which manipulation and deception work to stifle our spiritual growth. I bore witness to the spiritual war that rages within our communities, where division is fueled by those seeking power and control. The walls built by fear and misunderstanding were crumbling before me, and with each revelation, a deeper understanding of my role within this greater narrative emerged. It was a moment of clarity, a divine awakening that challenged everything I thought I understood about my faith and the world around me. As I returned to my waking life, the overwhelming weight of the truths I had received lingered, both invigorating and terrifying. I stood at a crossroads, aware that I could no longer remain silent in the face of such profound revelations. The urge to share what I had experienced intensified. I felt an obligation to guide others toward their own awakenings, to help them see the light obscured by societal deception. In embracing my new understanding, I also faced the potential fallout. Fear of alienation from my family and community haunted my every thought. Yet the love and truth that had been revealed to me were too powerful to ignore, sparking a determination to step boldly into the fray of the spiritual war that lies ahead. During a courtroom session, I felt an overwhelming tide of pressure build within me, accompanied by a growing sense of unease. My name is Amir, a judge in London, respected for my dedication to justice and fairness. I had spent years serving in this role, grappling with the inherent complexities of law and morality. Yet, as I prepared to read the verdict on a particularly sensitive case, something deep within me snapped. My vision blurred, my heart raced, and before I could comprehend what was happening, I collapsed, slipping into darkness. In that moment of unconsciousness, I found myself in a surreal, dark space that felt profoundly disorienting, an ominous courtroom devoid of its usual order. It was here that I encountered a blinding light, gradually revealing the form of Jesus standing before me. When he called my name, the familiarity struck me like a bolt of lightning. I felt both fear and overwhelming love wrap around me, and it was then that I realized I was witnessing something extraordinary. I stood not as a judge but as a seeker in a cosmic tribunal, confronting the deepest truths of my existence. As Jesus engaged with me, the revelations began to pour forth, illuminating the hidden agendas woven throughout religious systems. He unveiled the spiritual war that transcends any one tradition, a war fought not just in physical realms but in the hearts and minds of individuals. I watched in awe as layers of deception were peeled back, revealing how the elite manipulate belief to retain power and foster division. The realization struck me with a force I couldn't ignore. The structures I thought upheld my faith had too often been complicit in the very deceptions that keep us from experiencing genuine spiritual freedom. The spiritual awakening was more profound than I could have imagined. The insights Jesus shared exposed the ways in which the fear of offending tradition stifles authentic dialogue and connection. I came to understand that many, like me, might feel trapped within belief systems that no longer serve their spiritual growth. Every moment spent adhering to these constraints felt like a betrayal of truth, and I was compelled to question the very nature of faith. How could I continue to operate within a system that masked the light of revelation with shadows of doubt and fear? As the vision began to fade, I felt the weight of my experience pressing against the walls of my consciousness. I returned to the courtroom environment, but everything felt different. The stakes had shifted. The words I read now represented not just justice, but a challenge to the status quo of my community. In that pivotal moment, I understood my responsibility to be a voice, one that advocates for awakening in a world often enveloped in darkness. I had been called to share the truth about this spiritual war, a truth that could inspire acts of love, compassion, and understanding within my community. Yet the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, and I knew I had to confront my fears to fulfill my newfound purpose. The battle for truth was only beginning. Upon my return to consciousness, the weight of the world pressed down on me more heavily than ever. My name is Amir, and as a judge in London, I had once believed I was living a life of purpose, guided by the principles and traditions I had grown up with. Yet now, after my encounter with Jesus, I found myself facing rejection from my family and community. The very people who once held me in high regard now labeled me a traitor, and the guilt consumed me. I could feel their scorn in every whispered conversation, every sidelong glance. It felt like a knife twisting in my gut, a reminder of everything I stood to lose. The dichotomy of my situation was unbearable. On one hand, there was the pull toward exploring my newfound interest in Jesus, and the profound revelations he'd shared with me. The truth inherent in those revelations seemed to resonate deeper within my heart than anything I had known. On the other hand, I grappled with the potential loss of my identity, the only existence I had ever known. The fear of being cast out was paralyzing. I felt a longing to dive deeper into this faith that now ignited my spirit, yet I was trapped in a web of expectations and traditions that felt suffocating. Every attempt to connect with my family felt like walking on eggshells. I wanted to share the peace and love I had found through Jesus, but the fear of their dismissal held me back. I could almost hear the echoes of their disbelief in my head, their words circling like vultures, waiting to strike. The spiritual war one had witnessed in that moment of grace now manifested in my daily life. A constant battle between love and fear, faith and doubt. The urgency to reveal the truth I had come to know was suffocated by the anxiety of potential repercussions. Late at night, when the house was quiet, I would find refuge in the pages of the Bible. Each verse felt like a lifeline, pulling me closer to understanding the depths of the love and acceptance Jesus offered. My dreams often filled with visions of what could be, of a community united under the banner of love and understanding, rather than division. Yet the shadows of deception loomed large, threatening to derail the awakening that so many around me desperately needed. I felt a longing to gather those who were also yearning for the truth, but the trepidation of rejection kept me silent. As the days turned into weeks, the tension within me grew. I could no longer ignore the call to action that Jesus had instilled in my heart. I understood that this journey was not just for me, it was meant to guide others toward their own awakenings. But how could I take that first step? How could I confront the elite narratives that held my community captive? I stood at the precipice of a new reality, caught between the fear of isolation and the hope of spiritual liberation. With every moment that passed, I felt the whisper of Jesus urging me to step into the light, to be a vessel for his message of truth amid the darkness of deception swirling around me. In secret, I began to explore Christian texts and testimonies that challenged everything I had held true as a practicing Muslim. My name is Amir, a judge in London, and my desire for truth became a solitary journey I dared not share with anyone. Each evening after the day's proceedings, I would immerse myself in the pages of the Bible, letting the words wash over me like a refreshing tide. This was my escape, my sanctuary, a clandestine quest for understanding that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. The more I read, the more clarity I found, but it came with a rising tide of fear about how my newfound insights would disrupt my life. I discovered a small group of ex-Muslims who had also experienced awakenings that mirrored my own. They became my lifeline, a fragile network of souls navigating similar conflicts. Together we shared our stories over hushed conversations in dimly lit cafes, where outsiders wouldn't overhear our discussions. These moments were bittersweet, each laughter and shared pain intertwined with an anxiety for what lay ahead. We spoke of the hidden agendas we had uncovered, those systematic deceptions woven into the fabric of our society by the elite. Each narrative reinforced our resolve to seek the truth, yet the fear of abandonment from our families and communities loomed large. My encounters with these individuals deepened my understanding of the spiritual war that was raging around us. I felt validated in my experiences, struggling with the cultural expectations that suffocated my spirit. As we dug deeper into our beliefs, a pattern emerged: how the very foundations we were raised in often served as barriers rather than bridges to God. The revelation that Jesus brought into our discussions illuminated paths of love and understanding we had never dared to explore. Yet, as I embraced these new ideas, the nagging sense of guilt crept in, whispering doubts that tormented my heart. Every time I stepped into my own community, I felt the tension between my two worlds. With every prayer I recited, I could no longer ignore the growing divide between my heart and the rituals I performed. It haunted me. Could I ever truly reconcile these experiences with my life as a judge and esteemed member of my community? I began to feel like a foreigner in my own home, estranged from the very traditions that had once grounded me. The dreams I'd been having grew more vivid, filled with messages from Jesus that echoed the sentiments of awakening and liberation. It was clear that the spiritual path I was being called to required me to step out of the shadows, yet doing so seemed like an insurmountable challenge. As the weeks turned into months, I felt the urgency intensify. With every meeting, I realized my journey was not just about me. It was about forging a way for others who felt the same internal conflict. There was a mission burgeoning deep inside me to shed light on the deceptions that kept our communities divided. The stories of struggle and resilience I heard from my newfound friends became a wellspring of hope. I began to imagine a world where love surpasses fear, where awakening doesn't require sacrifice of one's identity. Yet, the fear of losing my family and the cultural ties that had shaped me remained my biggest obstacle. I knew the road ahead would be fraught with difficulties, but the clarity that came from my exploration propelled me forward, driving me to embrace my calling in the face of uncertainty. As I deepened my faith, an unmistakable realization settled within me. My revelation was not merely a personal awakening. It was a calling to help others break free from the oppressive systems that sought to control our lives. My name is Amir, and I am a judge in London, where I had spent years navigating the complexities of justice, often feeling the weight of societal expectations. Now, after my profound encounter with Jesus, every decision seemed imbued with a greater purpose, and every moment felt like a chance to share the truth I had discovered. In the quiet hours of the night, I found myself alone with my thoughts, reflecting on the spiritual war that rages not just within me, but also around me. I knew that many people in my community were trapped, held in place by traditions and beliefs that shaped their identity, but also concealed deeper truths waiting to be uncovered. I recalled how I had once been shackled by these same beliefs, obeying without questioning, and I felt an urgent desire to step into this new role as an advocate for truth. Each passing day left me more resolved to break my silence and speak out against the hidden agenda that kept so many, myself included, from experiencing genuine spiritual freedom. As I sought to foster connections within my community, I found others who were also searching for answers. Conversations were sacred, where laughter and tears intermingled, each story unlocking another layer of understanding. We discussed our struggles against the elite's deception that keeps us divided and afraid. It was during these encounters that I recognized the power we hold when we come together, sharing our journeys and supporting one another. I realized the importance of voicing our truths and proving that God's love transcends boundaries and divisions. Each interaction was a step toward liberation, a collective awakening that I felt compelled to champion. However, as I prepared to share my story more broadly, a wave of fear washed over me. What would my colleagues think? How would my family react? There were so many unanswered questions, and the potential for rejection loomed large. But deep down, I felt a new strength rising within me. The urgency of my message was clear. This wasn't just about my faith. It was about inviting others into the light, helping them navigate the spiritual war that keeps us all in chains. With each passing day, my commitment to this calling grew, and the need to confront the deception surrounding us became paramount. In my heart, I knew that the journey of awakening was far from easy, but I found solace in the mission before me. I could no longer remain a passive observer in my life or the lives of others. The truths I had uncovered demanded action. And so, with every hurdle I faced, I prepared to stand firm, embracing my calling to help others see through the darkness. This mission was bigger than myself, and while the prospect of isolation still lingered at the edges of my consciousness, the love I encountered through Jesus fueled an unquenchable desire to move forward and enlighten those around me. The spiritual war was far from over, but I felt equipped with the truth and ready to fight for awakening. Symbolically shedding my traditional clothing felt both liberating and terrifying. My name is Amir, and as a judge in London, I had always worn my religious attire with pride. It was a badge of honor, a connection to my faith and heritage. But after my encounter with Jesus, nothing felt the same. The truths he revealed shook the very foundations of my beliefs. It became clear that I was being called to a new path, one that would require me to embrace an identity beyond what I had always known. It was time to explore the depths of my faith unencumbered by the expectations of others. Every piece of clothing I removed symbolized the layers of fear and uncertainty I had carried for far too long. Adopting new attire was more than a change of fashion. It was a declaration. I was ready to embark on a path of clandestine evangelism, driven by a desire to spread the message of love and awakening that Jesus had imparted to me. The fear of how my community would react hung heavily in the air around me. I imagined their eyes filled with judgment, their whispers of betrayal echoing in the corners of my mind. But the call to share the truth was an overwhelming force within me, pushing aside the shadows of fear. As I ventured into newfound circles, I began planting seeds of hope, meeting with individuals who, like me, felt the tug of truth pulling them away from societal norms. Each conversation felt electrifying, blending spirituality and vulnerability in a way I had never experienced before. We spoke of the spiritual war that raged on in our hearts, how the hidden agendas of the elite manipulated our beliefs to keep us divided. I could see the urgency in their eyes as they shared their own struggles, how they sought freedom from the constraints of tradition, yearning to explore the love of Jesus without the weight of societal expectations. But as I delivered these messages of awakening, the repercussions of my choices weighed heavily on my heart. Each encounter brought forth the anxiety of potential rejection, the risk of being disowned by my family, or worse, alienated by my community. I wrestled daily with the dichotomy of my faith, caught between the rising excitement of truthful connection and the fear of losing everything familiar. Despite the warmth and acceptance I found in my new journey, my heart still ached for the validation of those whom I loved. The tension was palpable, and the stakes felt higher than ever. Amidst the unease, I was struck by the realization that every moment spent sharing the love I had encountered was an act of defiance against the manipulation and deception that sought to bind us. My resolve strengthened, and I recognized the power in confronting the hidden agendas that governed not just our lives but the very fabric of our society. Each story shared became a testament to the potential for transformation, encouragement for others to seek their own truths in a world clouded by fear. Step by step, I chose to embrace this path of evangelism, knowing the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges but filled with the promise of awakening. I was determined to stand strong in the face of adversity and shed light in the darkness that surrounded us. Years later, I find myself deeply integrated into a new community, one that stands in solidarity with my mission to share the truths I have discovered. My name is Amir, and though I once walked the halls of the courtroom with esteemed respect, I now feel the weight of my journey pressing forward, not just for myself but for all those who struggle against oppression. I have dedicated my life to dismantling the spiritual bondage that once ensnared me, illuminating the path to awakening for others who find themselves trapped in cycles of deception. My conviction is unwavering. I must hold on to hope that reconciliation with my family is possible as I tread down this new path. The experience I had when I encountered Jesus transformed everything. The revelation of the hidden agenda at play in our societies unveiled a stark reminder that the spiritual war is not just an abstract concept, it's woven into our everyday lives. I began sharing my story, portraying how faith and love can break the chains of fear and intimidation. I've watched as others slowly opened their hearts to the possibility of light shining through the darkness they felt trapped in. The profound realization that we are not alone in this fight has encouraged many to seek genuine connection, to embrace the truth that the elite often silence. In this community, I've encountered individuals who have endured similar battles, and together, we form a tapestry of resilience and strength. Sharing our stories fosters an environment ripe for awakening. Each conversation unveils more layers of deception we've been conditioned to accept, awakening a collective desire for truth. The courage in sharing our experiences empowers others to confront their own fears and embrace their true identity. It's a beautiful thing to witness. I often feel Jesus' presence among us, guiding and encouraging us as we face the struggles that arise from this spiritual war. Still, I hold a lingering ache in my heart for my family. There are moments when memories flood my mind, reminding me of the love we once shared. I can't help but think of how my journey might affect them. The fear of being alienated from those I hold dear weighs heavily on my conscience. Yet I've come to realize that my calling transcends personal relationships. I strive toward a higher purpose, believing that by embodying the truth, I can inspire a shift within my family as well. Perhaps, in time, they will recognize that my awakening does not signify a rejection of our past, but rather a profound evolution toward a deeper understanding of love and faith. As I continue to engage in this mission, every interaction is a chance to plant seeds of hope and healing. I share not just for myself, but for those who feel voiceless in their struggles. With each discussion, I feel a sense of urgency. This spiritual war is far from over, and many are still in darkness. Learning to confront oppression takes courage, but in this journey, we find strength in our shared commitment to truth and justice. I remain hopeful that reconciling my journey with my family isn't just a dream, but a future possibility, a testament to the transformative power of love where fear once reigned. As I stand in the courtroom preparing to read the verdict that will change lives, a shadow of doubt begins to creep into my mind. My name is Amir, and as a judge in London, I'm tasked with upholding justice, but the weight of my responsibilities often feels overwhelming. Each day in this role carries with it the burden of expectation, from my community, from the legal system, and most painfully within myself. I navigate this space with a solemn exterior, but inside, I feel an emotional emptiness that gnaws at my spirit, compelling me to question the purpose of my existence and the very faith that has guided me. The moment I began to read the verdict, I felt an unsettling wave of dizziness. Suddenly the room faded away, and I found myself drawn into an extraordinary encounter, a near-death experience that would forever alter the course of my life. In this immense void, I became aware of a brilliant light, gradually revealing the form of Jesus. When he called my name, I felt an overwhelming sense of love and acceptance, something I had not fully understood until that moment. In his presence, I was stripped bare of my fears and burdens, and a profound revelation began to unfold. Jesus showed me the intricate workings of the spiritual war that wages all around us. I was granted insight into the hidden agendas that manipulate society, the ways in which the elite employ deception to perpetuate division among people. I saw how faith can sometimes be wielded as a tool of control rather than a source of liberation. The realization struck me like a lightning bolt. The struggles I faced were part of a larger narrative shared by countless others. Each moment of doubt and fear began to dissolve in the light of these truths, and the spiritual shackles that had bound me felt less secure. As I returned to my body, the impact of this experience weighed heavily on my heart. I was torn between the desire to share what I had learned and the fear of being rebuffed by those I loved. In my community, where adherence to tradition holds significant weight, the message of awakening could easily be misinterpreted as a betrayal. I feared losing the bonds I had with my family and colleagues, yet the urgency to expose the deception that cloaked our lives grew stronger. I understood my role was not just to witness these truths, but to advocate for others still trapped in darkness. In the days that followed, I felt a compelling need to explore this newfound faith further. I reached out to a small group of individuals who had undergone similar awakenings, forming connections that provided comfort and validation. Together, we discussed our experiences, unraveling the threads that connected our journeys. The spiritual war we were all engaged in began to take shape, marking the necessity for action in the face of systemic oppression. As I embraced this mission, I realized I had a responsibility to help others reclaim their voices, to educate them about the truth hidden beneath layers of deception. With a heart full of purpose, I committed myself to the fight for awakening, aware that the path ahead would not be easy, but necessary for true liberation. Now that you've walked with me through this profound journey, I need you to pause for a moment and reflect. Have you ever sensed the battling forces at play in your own life, tugging at your beliefs, urging you to wake up to a deeper truth? The reality is, there's a spiritual war unfolding around us, a conflict that transcends individual experiences, shaping our very existence. In the depths of my encounter, I learned that what binds us is not just our struggles, but the shared longing for liberation from the chains of deception. I stand before you as Amir, a once respected judge seeking truth amidst tradition and societal expectations. My story is not just mine. It's a testament to the many souls caught in the web of fear and misinformation. We're all players in this grand narrative, and the awakening I experienced calls us to examine the hidden agendas that seek to manipulate and divide. Are you ready to embrace this call? To step into the light and recognize that the love of Jesus offers more than just doctrine. It offers freedom? As you ponder these questions, I invite you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Have you ever felt the stirrings of a deeper truth within you? Your story could resonate with others, sparking their own journeys of awakening. And if this resonates with you, please consider subscribing to Truth from Beyond and activating notifications. Why? Because together, we can illuminate the darkness. And what's coming next may unlock even greater revelations about our spiritual battles. In our next video, we'll dive deeper into the heart of this conflict, exploring testimonies that further reveal the transformative power of faith in the face of adversity. Your journey matters, and your voice can ignite the spark for change within our communities. Thank you for being here with me today. Let's continue to seek and share the truth together. I'm Amir, and remember, every awakening begins with a single step into the light.